box, so it's really only useful to get stronger gambler weapons for the setup. Bober had a pretty easy horde up running circles around the room with the wall pistol, the hornets, and using the upstairs route in emergencies. The hardest part about this first room, and map in general, is the ninja zombies that will teleport in front of you when you start sprinting. But Savetsky could time his sprints to specific areas where, when they popped up, he could avoid them. Unfortunately, one of these run-ins went downhill and Bober died dashing through the train. The fortune record on Shaolin is 66, also by Savetsky Bober. With fortune cards, this room doesn't change too much. Bober instead elected to use pack and heat to double pack his hornets into a much stronger version with tons more ammo. He also used power play for pack drops and second wind, perk insured, and explosive touch for safety. From there, he basically used the same strategy as his fate cards run. He was just able to get farther because he had stronger firepower. The game finally ended on 66 when Bober was taking down a ninja and accidentally got forced up the stairs. Then another ninja spawned in front of him and sent him to the Shadow Realm. And Attack of the Radioactive Thing is one of the most bizarre first rooms of all, but not because of the layout or the things available to you in here. It's because this room always gives you an error in the early 20s. That's right, if you don't open the first door, the leading theory is that the special enemy type of Krogs will try to spawn, but can't as you progress through rounds, and this leads to the game crashing extremely quickly. As such, this is tied with Carrier Bulldog side for the lowest record on our entire list at just round 24 by Bober again. But this is one of the most impressive achievements on this game. In early 2026, Bober spent 2 weeks straight grinding to beat the triple joint record of 23 that had stood for 3 years. The way the randomness of the crash shakes out, you'll pretty much always randomly crash on 21, 22, or 23, with each round getting exponentially rarer as you go up. Bober crashed 133 times on one of those 3 rounds in those 2 weeks before he reached round 24, which is basically the holy grail of this challenge. And that's not even counting the amount of times he died. The strategy is very simple, where Bober blocked the back 2 spawns with C4 and camped the front 2 with the Hornet's pistols and the Hailstorm. His game lasted miraculously long before crashing. It's entirely possible that this record will never be beaten. With fortune cards, the run is only made mildly easier with advantages like pack-a-punched weapons. 24 on Fortune was achieved back in 2022 by JScryne99 and joined in 2023 by Bober and Red Death. These games just mixed in extra killing power, defense like explosive touch, and ammo regulation like ammo crate, which spawns an ammo regen crate on the ground. Could 25 be possible with Fortune or even with Fate? Only time will tell. And Beast from Beyond is not played for a first room record, as if you don't turn the power on, only a handful of cryptids will spawn per round, and the first room is not challenging at all. Now we're on to World War II, where we can take a rest from split categories for a minute. The launch map, Final Reich, is a record that's higher in co-op than solo, at 36 by DeQuick Hayden and RDE. This room is one very tight alleyway that becomes basically impossible to train in the 30s, a little like Buried. Luckily, World War II has 2 helpful features: specialists, abilities that you spawn with and activate when charged, and passives called mods that allow you to spawn with special advantages. For this room, Hayden and RDE use the Free Fire Specialist, which gives you temporary infinite ammo, with a mod called Mark II. Mark II upgrades the gun while Free Fire is active into the Pack-a-Punched version, packing the starting pistol into the lovingly named Bacon and Eggs. With this, you can just kamikaze everything because the explosions it makes don't hurt you. Farming Free Fire back is based on point gain, so in between activations, Hayden and RDE would spam the pistol or throw satchel charges to damage groups of zombies for points. There's also a Panzer-esque boss zombie called a Brenner that spawns every 5 to 6 rounds, who thinks it's cool to run around after you with a flamethrower. The only way to kill this guy before he kills you is with Free Fire, so the pair had to time some of their Free Fire charges around when they knew he was going to spawn. RDE would also bleed out at the end of some rounds to gain more satchel charges back when he respawned at the beginning of the next. Unfortunately, these two hit a point pretty quickly where Hayden died while trying to kill the Brenner with his Free Fire, and RDE he couldn't build his back in time and died on 36. Meanwhile, Hayden holds the solo record at 34, using basically the same strategy. He ran back and forth across the room to farm points for free fire, but with only one player he could only use so much, even with 3 quick revives and 2 extra self revives. He at least only got 1 Brenner spawning at a time, instead of up to 3 in co-op. Another thing to watch out for in World War II is these armless zombies, which come randomly from damaging regular zombies and become much faster, and can easily end your first room attempt. Besides that, Hayden mostly relied on drops to save him, but his luck ran out on 34 when he got clotheslined by a whistling boss zombie. Grosstenhouse's world record is higher on co-op by 2 rounds as well, at 85 by Hayden and Spedic Gaming. This is the only record in this entire video that has a higher round in the first room than the regular world record, as the regular co-op world record before this was only 80. Since this map is so small, being just someone's house, the first room is 90% of the map, and the only thing you can't access on the map is the mystery box. However, the mystery box is very helpful on this map, as you can get jack-in-the-boxes, this game's version of monkey bombs, and other weapons that give you significant damage advantages or safety. You also can't access Pack-a-Punch in the first room because you obtain it through an Easter egg that involves throwing jack-in-the-boxes. However, you can get any perks you want, as there's a Wonder Fizz machine in here. You can also get armor, which lessens the damage that zombie hits do to you. The way that Hayden and Spedic killed was running around the entire map and firing into the zombies with the Lucky Crit mod equipped, which has about a 5% chance for each bullet to insta-kill a zombie. As like previous games, zombies on these higher rounds will have millions of health. Electric Cherry is also a lot stronger on this game, and will only take about 3 bursts to kill a zombie no matter what, when comboed with the melee perk, so the team used these on any close zombies. They also used the specialist Shell Shock to stun zombies that hit them like a Black Ops 3 Widow's Wine grenade. One weird thing worth noting is that there's a bug on this game that's very prevalent on this map in particular, where the laser effect on any wall buy will duplicate when you purchase ammo from it. With a few times this isn't bad, but after hundreds of times buying ammo, it will start messing with the performance of the game. Because Hayden and Spedic were playing on an old gen console, it removed all drop visual effects in later rounds, and started lagging the hell out of their game whenever they were looking at the wall buy. They ended the game on 85 by opening the door and pulling weapons out of the box until they died. The solo record, 83 by Spedic, played a very similar way, just without the backup of having a co-op partner and the extra Lucky Crit procs. The Wonder Fizz actually became his downfall this game, as he got trapped on it by a zombie and died. Prologue is like the bare bones version of Grosstenhouse, kind of like what Bus Depot is to Transit. The first room record here is 42 by Spedic Gaming. It's the same layout as Grossten, but you have almost nothing to work with. No perks besides Quick Revive, so no Electric Cherry, no mods, so no Lucky Crit, no lethals, so no throwing knives, no Shell Shock Specialist for stunning zombies for safety, as you can only use free fire on this version, no drops whatsoever, and still no mystery box, of course. Spedic ran the zombies around in the reverse direction in this game compared to Grossten, since the spawns are slightly different and can easily trap you if you tried playing the normal Grosstenhouse high round method. Spedic survived 4 hours before dying from getting cut off by respawners near the kitchen stairwell. The Darkest Shores record is 53 by Hayden. Here you're washed up on a fairly open beach, but zombies come at you from all sides. On this map, your main killing method is infinite damage bombs dropped by bomber zombies, which you can shoot to blow up other groups of zombies. Another thing to note about World War II is that only 18 zombies can spawn at a time on this game, instead of 24, and it usually shakes out to be 16 zombies and 2 Wustlings, the more powerful armored zombies. The Wustlings can run over crawlers and kill them, which actually helps you out a lot in using less bombs. A lot of the specialists from here on out are for safety, like in this case, Hayden used camouflage instead of free fire to protect himself. But one of the challenges of this map are the fog rounds. Here, the zombies will ignore you unless you make sudden movements, get near them, or shoot. And you better get ready to hide, because this freaky ass crab zombie will spawn too. You can hide for the first 30 seconds he's around, but then he'll notice you and you have to run from him for a full minute until the fog ends. Nothing you have will kill him, but he'll go away after the 90 seconds of fog are up. Hayden and Spedic actually recently found another way to help with these rounds though, where if you jump, crouch, and melee into the water, your visual effect of the fog will go away, so this may be used in future attempts. But it wasn't a fog round that killed Hayden anyway. He eventually died this game when trying to round up the zombies got particularly hairy, and he couldn't make it past. The Shadowed Thrones record is 72 by Spedic Gaming. This room is a big L shape with a two-pronged corridor at the bottom. Spedic would loop at the top of the L, or if there were whistlings blocking his way, he hoarded up by starting at the top of the L, then running down to the turn where there weren't any spawns behind him, and then ran the zombies around the full room. He'd usually train in the main area and shoot bombs to blow up hordes. Or when he had to, he used the full map to train and procced Lucky Crit to kill zombies, although the best wall buy in here is the double-barreled shotgun. But this actually makes it a safer process, as each shotgun pellet has the 5% chance to activate Lucky Crit, so your shot actually has a higher chance to kill and less of a chance to create one-armed zombies. Spedic died on 72 after 15 hours from getting ganked by a whistling and a one-armed zombie combo. The Tortured Path maps, Bodega Cervantes, USS Mount Olympus, and Altar of Blood, don't have any doors, so we'll skip those. The Frozen Dawn is the only current first room record that ends to a reset at 125 by Spedic. This room is more similar to Shore, where you hoard up the zombies and kill them with bombs, although in here you have a lot more space to work with, so it's not as dangerous as Shore. It becomes pretty strategically simple, with running the length of the room to hoard up, and then shooting the bomb to bomb the zombies. Every round after 100 is just round 100 repeating, so Spedic's game plateaued at this point. He was able to survive 46 hours to this map's reset, giving World War II a great finale. On Black Ops 4, we have split categories again, but split differently this time. This is the only COD Zombies game that has records on different difficulty modes, so I'm going to split them across the two most popular modes, Normal and Hardcore. On Normal, you can take 4 hits from a zombie before downing, and the zombie's health will not increase past round 35. On Hardcore, you can only take 3 hits, and the zombie's health will increase indefinitely. This game's version of Gobblegums is called Elixirs. Although, like Fate and Fortune cards, you hold all of your available elixirs at the start of the game. Unlike Fate and Fortune cards, elixirs just have a time-based recharge rate. There are mega elixirs, many of which are similar to Black Ops 3, but I'm actually going to skip this category entirely, because it's kind of silly and not really strategically interesting to talk about. They're not played much, and when they are, it's usually just using things like power vacuum spam to spawn thousands upon thousands of drops, as elixirs like that are not banned for records on this game. Besides that, you can just get all the perks and pack your weapons to kill slightly faster. So to keep this already gargantuan video down for time, we'll stick to the nail-biter records. 9's normal world record is 72 by Scottish player Vixty, with classic elixirs. Classic elixirs on this game aren't as much for safety in first rooms as they are for kill efficiency, so I'll just mention whichever record is higher, with elixirs or without. Common elixirs used, such as the ones in Vixty's game, are Arsenal Accelerator, which charges your specialist weapon faster, Head Scan, which has a chance to insta-kill zombies on headshots when active, Temporal Gift, which makes drops like insta-kills last twice as long, Pop Shocks, which has 5 activations of electrifying and killing full hordes when knifing, and Equipment, which refills your grenade slot. One of the most powerful grenades you can equip to your starting loadout is Wraith Fires, which on normal difficulty will kill on any round. Your grenade slot also recharges over time, meaning you can use at least 1 Wraith Fire every 60 seconds. Anywhere But Here works in some first rooms, and in co-op, elixirs like Nowhere But Here can be used as a substitute to teleport to a downed teammate. 9 has a wide open area of a first room, with fire traps that try to scorch you but also challenge podiums that have very easy challenges for very good rewards. In solo, you can get an extra revive, but the best reward is a pack-a-punched version of the first wall-buy pistol, the Strife, so you can buy ammo for it. And you'll need it, because yes, every zombie type in this map spawns in the first room. Blightfathers, gladiators, brawlers, tigers, which are basically like dogs, and catalyst zombies, which are elemental zombies that have special powers. But there's a lot of room to keep your distance and shoot from afar, or run like a bitch. The best way to deal with these is to use your specialist weapon. Specialists are much better on this game than any other. As you spawn with them, they all do infinite damage, and they have relatively short recharge times. On the Chaos storyline maps, you can equip the Viper and Dragon specialist, which is by far the best as you get a long-range gun and a close-range sword. And the sword can even act as a monkey bomb and distract zombies. This is also helpful as an extra weapon, as one major feature change in Black Ops 4 that affects first rooms a lot is how the points work. In this game, you do not get points for hitting a zombie with a bullet like all previous games. You only get points for the percentage of damage you do to the zombie. This means at 35 plus, you will barely be breaking even on points versus wall gun ammo buys. So having millions of points is usually a thing of the past. But Vixty managed to keep a good economy and a good lifespan, and ended up quitting out on 72. The hardcore versions of most of these first rooms are very similar. They're just harder and more dangerous because of the reduced player health and stronger zombies. Plus, points can be even harder to come by in higher rounds, as you will get fewer and fewer points per bullet. The co-op record is higher at 61 by ZKL Momo and All-Star Gamer. They still got their Pack-a-Punch strifes from the challenges, and Wraithfires are still critical here, as they function as free damage without having to spend points for ammo. Wraithfires also notably light the floor on fire and do tick damage the longer the zombies stand on them. So the meta is to run the zombies around in the Wraithfire for as long as humanly possible, before it disperses after about 15 seconds. The fire trap ceases to be a problem here, because in co-op you can actually utilize a bug to nullify its damage entirely. If you bleed out on the fire trap or inside a gladiator gate, when you respawn and damage yourself once at each flame pillar, you will become immune to the fire. However, this is only doable in co-op because obviously you need someone to progress the round. This allowed players to run freely around the arena and fire off their packed weapons at the horde, along with Wraithfires whenever they were ready. As you can see, by the end of the game, Momo and All-Star are nearly bankrupt, especially since every Strife ammo buy cost 4,500 points. The game ended when Momo was laying into All-Star's horde with an alternate wall weapon, the Essex shotgun, but got jumped by some hard-hitting zombies, and when All-Star tried to revive him, he died too. The solo hardcore record is a tie at 58 by Zoic and Vixty. Once again, same story, just avoid the fire, rip the Strife, struggle to maximize your funds as you start to make less and less. Just like real life. The other brutal part of the Black Ops 4 point system is that in solo, you'll lose half your points when you down, making the economy even harder. But Zoic finally died trying to cut back the zombies and round up the horde, and Vixty died getting hit while walking through the fire. Voyage of Despair's normal world record is 62 by All-Star Gamer. This layout is a bit more complex than 9's, with a raised back deck, a lower middle area with obstacles, and a raised walkway at the front with jumping off points. There's no packed weapons in here, but there is a viable perk. In Black Ops 4 you can set the perks wherever you want them in your loadout, so this can be any perk you want. And All-Star chose Dying Wish, which prevents you from downing when you get hit too much, but has a time to recharge. All-Star circled the room with the Strife and his equipped starting gun, the SOG. He made long LeBron jumps off the staircases and used Wraithfires at the choke points, or on places where the zombies climbed up to bait them into receiving more tick damage. He eventually died when circling at the bottom of a staircase and getting trapped. The hardcore record is close behind at 60 by ZSFR Maxinor. Max just ran faster and more consistent circles around the room, as it was taking longer to kill the zombies at 60 than All-Star's game, and he had to stay ahead of them, as in the 50s they all became super sprinters. You'll still notice the insane time difference Wraithfires make between this and the earlier games like Black Ops 1, seeing as how this game was only about 8 hours long compared to, say, 50 hours for Tester XVI's round 60 on Kino, with Tester also having dog rounds. Max also used Dying Wish like All-Star, but ended up dying on 60 this game, although the clip of the death has been lost. So just imagine him taking a down in the stupidest, most brain-dead way you can imagine. Blood of the Dead's record is actually a tie between the co-op and the solo on normal, 59 by Maxinor and Descaras, and a solo game by Japanese player Miu27. This first room is a bit similar in layout to Origins, spawns, with 2 square rooms connected by a staircase. In the co-op, Max would train on the bottom floor, a large rectangle with a table in the middle and 2 spawns at the back, and Descaros would train on the top floor, a larger square room with more obstacles and spawns at opposite corners. Periodically, Descaros would bring down his zombies to Maxinor, they'd merge, and then Descaros would run back upstairs while Max wraithfired the zombies. Another extremely helpful feature on Black Ops 4 is that you can shoot the zombies to stun them like on Black Ops 3, as they cannot do their attack animation while they are being hit by a bullet. And on this game, it's even more effective against them, as they will be stunned for even longer. This means you can play a lot more aggressive, faster, and safer, since you know that it's rare that a rogue zombie will hit you if you see it in time and your aim is good. Also, since this is an Ether storyline map, different specialists are available, and the most useful one for this room is Takio's Samurai Sword, which has a dash attack that makes you temporarily invisible and is devastating in close quarters like this. The sword also has a zombie blood mode that makes zombies completely ignore you for a time. Brutus does spawn in here, but the pair could usually pause their kills to dispatch him, especially if they had the sword available. The pair died when Max mistimed his Wraithfire respawns and ran right into them, and Descaros downed trying to get down to his floor. On the solo record by Mew, he would stay on the bottom floor like Maxinor, but he'd have to hoard up all the zombies by himself. He'd place one board on both downstairs windows for some buffer time, and then Wraithfire. To kill the full horde, he'd have to run them several times over the Inferno on the ground, so he had to practice cutting back and tightening the horde a lot, collecting the nearby zombies and then the ones coming down the stairs. His game finally ended when he misjudged his spawns and didn't dash past the downstairs window fast enough. The hardcore record is 52 by All-Star again. All-Star's strategy was very similar to Mew's with a few tweaks. Until the mid-40s, zombies would die to one Wraithfire, although All-Star had to run them over the fire for almost the entire duration it was on the ground. In higher rounds though, and especially after 50 when super sprinters became common, he could only kill partial hordes with one Wraithfire. The good news is that he was never buying ammo, so he racked up tons of points. Plus he used the sword whenever it was available. Unfortunately, he died when Brutus spawned and forced him upstairs into a much tougher horde up, which he could not complete. Classified's highest first room round is a tie at 55 by Black Ops 4 GOAT IMZ123 and Raid's FPS. This room is the exact same layout as 5's first room, but of course the game mechanics here are much different. For one thing, you can see just how helpful shooting to stun is in some of these clips. But the zombies aren't the only threat. If you looked at 5 at the beginning of this video and said, this needs more boss zombies, this is the map for you. After 25, both dogs and Nova Crawlers will spawn with zombies on this map, and they will just disrespect you by spawning in the middle of the room. You also cannot set windows on this map, unlike 5. The zombies will just spawn out of all 6 windows. These players would run the perimeter of the room, shooting to stun any ambitious zombies, and wraith-firing the horde at choke points whenever they had them all. It's also worth noting that this is the only record in the entire BO4 section that used no elixirs. And fun fact, these games were actually played for the 3rd Zombies World Championship in spring 2021. Raids actually achieved 55 3 times, and ended up winning the challenge by a tiebreaker of kill count, but he could never make it past the super sprinting zombies. They always cut him off too quick. IMZ failed to break the tie when he slowed down to shoot a dog in a doorway on 55, and the zombies caught up to him too quick. The hardcore version of this is way behind at 41 by Maxinor. The advantage was that Max was killing much slower with his Wraithfires due to zombie health, so he didn't have to manage a full horde of respawners every time. The downside was that he could only take 3 hits, so the horde ups he did have to do were a lot more dangerous. He ended up dying right after using his sword and trying to hoard up the respawners, but they spilled in too fast. Dead of the Night has the honor of being the smallest first room in existence. Seriously, all you have is this tiny L-shaped room that's not even really big enough for training. Therefore, this map is unique in that the 3-player record is the highest round, at 56 by French team Maxinor, Rasmo, and Descaras. Yeah, the French have all the records on this map again. There are actually 2 first rooms on this map, similar to Verrucht or Carrier, but there's not actually a split category for this map because they're so similar and one of them is basically unplayable. You definitely want to be on Strife side for the better weapon and more room, but the game will always spawn at least 1 player apart in co-op. There are 2 ways around this. You can either have that player down and bleed out, or you can use the elixir that allows you to teleport to a down teammate. They did the latter. There's only 2 windows in here, so you can put a player on each and keep holding them with boards and wraith firing. So what is the 3rd player doing? Oh, he's keeping you safe from the vampires. These will start spawning on round 13 from a separate spawn and are basically faster zombies with inconsistent health, so it's hard to tell how long they'll take to die. They also have a lunge attack and love to use it. If that wasn't bad enough, werewolves start spawning on 31. These are your classic big bad boss zombie, but they die quickly to Viper and Dragon. But if that wasn't bad enough, red vampires, or Nosferatu, start spawning on 36, which have more health and can bring you within 1 hit of death in 1 swing. These are what make this room hard more than anything. Not to mention this map has catalyst zombies as well. There is no hoard up strategy here because you can't hoard up. It's a game of hold the windows and if they breach, use everything you can to regain control, making this one of the most hectic and intense first rooms. The game ended when the vampire player got rushed, Maxinor breached his window, and the last player got trapped in the corner, sending them to their graves. The solo record is still surprisingly high at 41 by Maxinor. How did he manage to pull this off in solo? Good timing, great resource management, and a little luck. Max would stand at this window and let the zombies from the opposite window come in, and wraithfire to kill as many of them as possible. Then he'd run to the very back, whip out Viper and Dragon, and use it on the full horde, ending it off with the distraction tech. technique. This will actually start to charge it back up. He'd only use about half of its charge, so he would be able to charge it back up again with this and the next Wraithfire. This works surprisingly consistently, in tandem with helpful drops like insta-kills, Maxinor. How did he manage to pull this off in solo? Good timing, great resource management, and a little luck. Max would stand at this window and let the zombies from the opposite window come in, and Wraithfire to kill as many of them as possible. Then he'd run to the very back, whip out Viper and Dragon, and use it on the full horde, ending it off with the distraction technique. This will actually start to charge it back up. He'd only use about half of its charge, so he would be able to charge it back up again with this and the next Wraithfire. This works surprisingly consistently, in tandem with helpful drops like insta-kills, max ammos, and full powers to recharge the specialist. You actually want to avoid nukes most of the time because they won't charge your specialist and they tweak the respawning zombies' pathing, making your job much harder. Max sadly died when he was trying to maximize his kills in some Wraithfires and failed his slide. On hardcore, the highest is 42 with 4 players by the ZKL squad. Here, 2 players would just have to hold the windows for longer and use more Wraithfires or Viper and Dragons to dispose of zombies, and 2 players could hold the vampire spawn at the end of the room. The game ended when All-Star had a breach that killed them all. And in solo, the hardcore record is only 33 by Maxinor. This is kind of funny because he didn't even reach the point where the health is higher than the normal 35 health cap. It's just so much harder in these close quarters when you can't tank that extra third hit. He died trying to recover from a down when a vampire lunged at him. Ancient Evil's first room record is 60 by, oh my god, he's back, Savetsky Bober. This room is actually quite small despite the fact that it consists of a whole temple and is the main strategy area on Ancient Evil High Round. However, of course, all you have to work with is the Strife, along with Wraithfires and the Viper and Dragon. The horde up here is easier than you might think, where you just start outside the front of the temple, run around the side, stall the zombies outside their spawn, and then again inside the temple, and you pretty much have them all. Bober enacted a very simple strategy for victory, running clockwise through the temple and surrounding area and smacking Wraithfires at the temple's left exit. This first room is so close quarters that you can actually kill a lot of respawners with each Wraithfire burn. Like the other BO4 first rooms, bosses love you in here, but also like the others, you can turn them into confetti with the specialist. Unfortunately, on the horde up of round 60, a lot more zombies spawned out of the initial spawn than Bober was expecting, and made him ancient history. The hardcore version's record is a tie at 54 between IMZ123 and Bober himself. Mirroring classified hardcore, this strategy is just to use Wraithfires much slower and safer, and do several loops before repeating to watch for respawners, keeping your guns out only for stunning zombies or chipping away at the horde health. IMZ would end up dying to an exploding fire catalyst zombie, and Bober, wait a second, no way Bober gets trapped in the same place twice, right? Right, Bober? Oh. Alpha Omega's record throws back to All-Star with another 60. This room might be the simplest of any Black Ops 4 first room, as there's no bells and whistles, no special weapons, perks, or bosses, just a circle and a whole lot of zombies. And a whole lot of Wraithfires. This is also where stun shooting becomes the most evident and necessary, as there's really no fancy techniques or horde up strategy to make you safer. You just have to dodge everything coming at you. However, like the other Ether maps, you do have the Samurai Sword for safety. All-Star died this game when he missed the stun on a zombie and then got hit from behind. He also holds the hardcore record at 57, which sports an almost identical strategy. The only difference was that All-Star would throw his Wraithfires on the more open side of the room instead of the choke point, as there he could run the zombies around in the fire for maximum tick damage. Also, he'd consistently shoot with the Strife while his Wraiths recharged to get that extra chip damage. This game, he actually ended up quitting by opening the door. Really, All-Star? You couldn't have made this one hardcore record that's higher than a normal record? And finally, we have Tag der Toten, which has a record of a whopping 179 by the man, the myth, the legend, Savetsky Bober. Why is this record such a ridiculous amount higher than any other Black Ops 4 first room? First of all, it's the easiest, since you have a wide open circle of docks and walkways, and the zombies almost always need to climb up to get to you. There's also no boss or special zombies in this room besides dogs, which are actually nice to have because they're easily killable. Bober would just do a couple loops around the room and then Wraithfire while all the zombies climbed up at the choke point, and repeat since Wraithfires always kill on normal. The game lasted 90 hours and actually ended when Bober's PS4 froze, although it's still not the longest first room game ever. And even if that game makes sense as to why it lasted so long now, you may still be surprised by how high the hardcore record is. 137, also by Bober. How did Bober manage to pass rounds even when the zombies had millions of health? This map has weaponized snowballs, which can be picked up for free infinitely from certain spots on the map, several of them being in the first room. They do infinite damage on headshots and 3-shot on a body shot, but they only kill one zombie at a time, so it's extremely slow, but possible. At the very least, you can mix in elixirs like pop shocks to kill a bit faster at times. It took Bober almost the same amount of time to reach 137 on hardcore as it did to reach 179 on normal. 89.5 hours this time, to show you the sheer time difference. On this game, he ended up dying when he missed the jump to the killing dock. With the next game, Cold War, we finally move into the modern era of zombies. Starting with this game, Treyarch changed how round progression works, with zombie health capping at 55 and round length tapering off at 51, where rounds will only get a couple zombies longer every time. As such, you'll see a lot higher rounds here, and the best example is the launch map, D Machine. The other main difference with this game is that zombies will drop loot, much more diverse loot than power-ups like insta-kills or max ammos. These include things like grenades, throwing axes, stim shots, etc., but most importantly, salvage. Salvage is a currency used to buy lethal grenades, tactical grenades, support score streaks, and self-revives from the crafting tables around the Cold War maps, including in every first room. This gives you a lot of weapons that kill past the damage cap, making these records very high. In fact, in the D Machine first room, 6 different people have reached Cold War's maximum round of 935. Yes, this was hard-coded into the game by Treyarch as a Group 935 Easter egg. The first was Pikachu in August of 2021. Part of the reason for this was that when the game was new, it was so unstable that it was believed you could only reach the max round if you didn't open the full map. Otherwise, everyone seemed to crash. This was the basis on which Pika played his game, where he decided to run full hordes on the tree line side of the map, then shoot each with the War Machine score streak, collecting his loot after every loop. When his War Machine ran out of ammo, he'd simply buy a new one with the salvage he'd collected. You'll notice that this first room is very wide open, but that's partially balanced out by the presence of super sprinters, and how hard the zombies hit you without any perks. Plus, the amount of zombies that can spawn on the map at a time has been raised on this game to 32, from 24 on previous games. Another feature in this game is armor, which reduces damage to your health. Normally, you can buy more armor from the armor station when the zombies chip away at it, but there are no armor stations in most of the first rooms, so Pika had to wait for the zombies to randomly drop armor to get more. He used the Ether Shroud Specialist for safety, which makes you invisible to the zombies for a few seconds, like Idolize on Black Ops 3 Mega Gum records, or the Samurai Sword on Black Ops 4. Even if he downed, he could just buy another self-revive. Still, the game was no cakewalk, because maxing out the round in the first room was a long journey. Pika took over 174 hours of gameplay to reach round 935. But this still isn't the longest first room game of zombies ever. Toward the end of the game, it was so laggy and unstable that Pika had to stand still by the workbench and spam the War Machine, or risk dying and freezing the game by moving around too much. But that was fine because he had tons of salvage saved up. On the last round, he opened up the first door to discover the rest of the map, although when walking through the map, he was freezing every 5 seconds, which ended his exploration pretty fast. The next year, in 2022, 4 more players, Trick Shots, Beta Pack-a-Punch, Tropical Kush, and Uking NL also all achieved round 935 in the first room. Trix played the same War Machine training strat until the 700s, but after that pioneered another strategy using another score streak, the RC car, right next to the crafting table for when the game was barely playable anymore. Everyone after him used this, with Tropical Kush whittling the time all the way down to 128 hours. In 2023, a player named Persevere reached round 935 in the first room without using any armor either, meaning that one hit from the zombies in triple digits would red screen train him. Because of this, he switched to playing with the RC car early, in the 300s. In 2025, another player named Nas Fury also reached 935. He was the most recent one to complete this challenge. Now, I'm going to split categories again for Cold War here, because I also want to go over the no support record as well. That's the juicier one. In this rule set, you can buy lethal and tactical grenades from the crafting table, but you can't buy any score streaks or self-revives. Armor can drop from zombies, but it's rare and completely random, so you can't rely on it. You're also not allowed to pick up self-revives from zombies on this rule set, so you can only use the single one you spawned with and take one single down. Thus, the no support first room record on D Machine is 275 by Drain BB. Drain used the same training route as the support players did with the War Machine. However, he would just use Semtex grenades to kill the zombies. Yes, Semtex kill past the round 55 health cap on this game. Whenever he got a good loot drop from the zombies, like C4 or Molotovs, he'd use that too, as he wanted to be conscious of not wasting his salvage economy. Here, I'll also talk about the boss zombie, the Megaton, since you can't just spam war machines or chopper gunners into his face on this challenge. The Megaton is a bulky toxic zombie with a charge attack, and when you get his health low enough, he actually splits into two separate halves that attack you. For this reason, Drain had to develop a special way to deal with him to manage him more easily. When the Megaton arrived every few rounds, Drain would use his Tesla Storm field upgrade to damage him all the way down until right before he was low enough to split, then charge it up again off a zombie horde and repeat quickly to deal with the two halves. Drain was so locked in that he didn't even break his armor plate a single time, and he played 18 hours until he decided to quit on 275. Firebase Z's first room record with support is 476 by Tony V. This first room contains an entire town square, including the outside and inside of buildings, but Tony didn't have to use much of that. Instead, he'd buy the Death Machine score streak from the crafting table and run to the upstairs balcony in the adjacent building to camp and use them. This first room will throw dogs, manglers, and a new boss called Mimics at you, who pose as loot, but Tony had no problem disintegrating all of them with lead. When he needed a new death machine, he'd just use Ether Shroud with an augment that teleports you a short distance to zip to the table and buy a new one. Then he'd use Gersh devices to get back up top. You can also buy Quick Revive in this first room. It doesn't actually revive you unless you have it upgraded to tier 5 and get a kill while down, but you have self revives to revive you on this game, and Quick Revive does make your health regen much faster. This game lasted over 40 hours before Tony finally ended up freezing on 476 while using a Gersh device. Without support, the record is only 90 by Tropical Kush. He had to be much more careful, especially with manglers and mimics kicking his ass. He utilized almost the entire first room, running a long loop through the street and up to the rooftops, and using Semtex and anything else that dropped to kill, although it was almost impossible to get horde-ups as clean as D Machine. He also used Ether Shroud for safety and to rebuy grenades. His game ended to a disconnection while paused. Marauder Toten's support record is a 265 game crash by, it's Drain BB. This is by far the hardest first room on Cold War. This first room consists of 2 floors. The lower is a series of rooms, not much bigger than Verrucht Jugside, but with the faster and heavy-hitting zombies, it's way too small to train in or even access mid-round. The bad news is the crafting table is down here. You can access the floor above via a caved-in corner of the rooftop, and the rest of the rooftop itself, but it's dotted with obstacles. There are a range of boss zombies that spawn in here. Manglers, which can knock down zombies with their cannon, Disciples, which increase the zombies' health and drain your health and armor constantly if you're in their range, and the most fun, Panzers with long-range flamethrowers. These can all spawn in combination with the zombies and each other. With support, Drain could just pop Ether Shroud and melee the Panzer to death with the combat bow, plus buy self-revives or nades whenever he needed. That's why no support is the real challenge. In fact, no support Mauer First Room is considered by some to be the hardest world record on all of Cold War, not just in first rooms, in any category. The record is 65 by Drain BB. Here, since you can't use the combat bow against the Panzer as it counts as support, you have to use the Ring of Fire field upgrade, which powers up your shots, and both a C4 and a Semtex against him. But this means you have to swap out the safety of Ether Shroud for this field upgrade. So not only can you not buy self-revives anyway, You can't even buy grenades mid-round if there are any special enemies, and you have to just use what you get on the ground. It's very tough to conserve salvage here anyway, and one small mistake can cost you the game. Drain used a back and forth cutback horde up strat around the perimeter of the entire rooftop, which he had down to a science. By the time he completed his route, the zombies were in the center of the roof, and he could toss nades at them and then collect his salvage and semtexes or C4s to kill the next horde. The game ended when he got railed from behind while trying to complete this at the beginning of 65. And then we're on to Forsaken, which has an entire parking lot as its first room. Although to be fair, there are a lot of obstacles. The record here is the max round of 935 by 2 players. First by Insomnia Virus in January of 2022, and then less than a month later by Trix as well. Similar to D-Machine, this map's meta also used to be to play the high round in the first room, as the map would always crash when you tried to play high rounds after opening everything up. For much of this game, Insomnia camped in the corners of the room with the death machine. He threw decoy grenades and whatever else dropped from the zombies, and used Ether Shroud to get out and get a new one each time. The only perk you can get in here is Death Perception, which allows you to see zombies through walls, which is a little helpful for safety, and it also gives you 20% more salvage, which is very helpful for economy. What's even more helpful is the fact that there's an armor station in this first room, allowing you to buy up to tier 3 armor and rebuy more whenever you want. Toward the end of the 152-hour game, Insomnia changed his strategy to getting spammier and spammier with the War Machine at the climbable obstacles nearest the workbench. Insomnia's game was just barely hanging on by the end, teetering on the edge of crashing, as constant killing for a long time like he was doing with the death machine destabilizes this game. As soon as he left this area and teleported to the rest of the map, his game crashed almost instantly.
Oh, we crashed! We freaking crashed! Now, this is the official crash, guys. That's it. Yeah, like I said, guys, it's too much on the power, right?
Trix was running this map like a machine at the same time. Coming off a round 800 game where his controller broke, he ordered a new one off Amazon, and as soon as it came, he got a power outage. This was his redemption game. He used a War Machine strategy for his entire game, running wide circles around the entire area and blasting each horde. The strategy was a bit slower but more stable for the game overall. He also had one window get stuck in the 500s from a Tormentor special zombie dying in front of it, and that slowed his game down a lot too. He took 183.5 hours to reach round 935, making this the official longest first room game of all time. The no support record on Forsaken is only 246 by Slang Kush 420, a stoner not to be confused with Tropical Kush. His strategy was more similar to trick shots, as he ran long steady loops around the first room, using up all the room to dodge zombies as they came, and using things like C4, Semtex, or his Frost Blast field upgrade to bust the horde. He was also able to upgrade to 3 armor plates and rebuy whenever he wanted, but his game eventually ended to him missing a climb up on top of a truck and the zombies dragging him down. You probably think, surely no one plays first rooms on Vanguard, right? Wrong. 2 people do. The first 2 maps, Duranfang and Terra Maledicta, don't have records because you're forced to progress to a different room each round. However, the last 2 do. The record on Shinonuma Reborn is a tie, 35 by Sunli and ZSFR Maxinor, making Maxinor the MVP for having first room records on the most games, and the most records in this video. This game still plays pretty differently than any before it. First of all, you can start with any gun, and you can buy ammo for it from the ammo crate in the first room. Both Sunli and Maxinor went with shotguns that would devastate at close range. Super sprinting zombies make a return in this game starting on 35, and zombie hits do increase damage as rounds scale, so by round 31 you're a 1-hit down without armor or Juggernog, and even with armor you're a 2-hit down. You do have an activatable ability that makes you temporarily invisible for safety. Like Cold War, zombies drop loot, like decoy grenades or monkey bombs, which are useful in the first room. Special enemies include Zabala, who makes explosions that are easily avoidable but throw zombies to the ground, and Sturmkrieger, who shoot you with miniguns and also throw zombies to the ground, inadvertently causing more problems for you. Killing these, however, can net you very helpful items like pack-a-punch weapons, death machines, war machines, or even self-revives. The other zombie type is explosive zombies, but these are helpful as they can be used to kill the horde. Wall weapons are also handy because they become pack-a-punch by themselves off the wall as the round increases. Sunli and Maxinor ran vaguely the same route around the room as all previous Shinos, shooting with their shotguns as they went. They could detonate the explosive zombies to kill the horde if they were in a good spot. Tragically, the super sprinters on 35 were far too much for either Sunli or Maxinor to handle in close quarters, and they both died to that. The Archon has a record of 40. Once again, a tie between Sunli and Maxinor. This is basically the exact same story as Shino Reborn, but you have a bit bigger of an area to accommodate the zombies and bosses. Here you can run cutbacks to horde up and put distance between you and the super sprinters. This time, Sunli and Maxinor both ate it to bad respawners. Phew, at least the Vanguard section wasn't too long, right? Now we're on to our penultimate game, Black Ops 6. I'm only going to be looking at the categories without Gobblegums here, as once again, Gums kind of turn this into spamming support drops and insta-kills, especially since there's no gum machine price increase and the round progression works about the same as Cold War. However, I will include the support categories as most maps don't have crafting tables in the first room, and the only way to get support score streaks is for zombies to drop them as loot, which is fairly rare. Terminus is the only map where the record is higher in co-op, at 100 by 4 people who love numbers after their names: Ross, Sean, Cindy Lou, and Bradley. This is actually one of the more interesting first rooms on modern zombies, mostly because of its unique shape and how tight it is. There are 4 different rooms: a small triangular room at the top, 2 rectangular rooms, and a courtyard that's perfect for cutbacks. However, with the max amount of players, this team could work in sync with a very unique strategy. The zombie count on this game in co-op is not much more than solo, only around 25% more zombies per player, so they could synergize to do a strategy that's an incredible amount faster than solo. They would camp by the ammo crate in the courtyard, and take turns popping the Ether Shroud field upgrade, each equipped with an augment called Group Shroud, which expands Ether Shroud to everyone around you. That way, they could all be shrouded at the same time, and the players who didn't just pop Shroud could recharge their shrouds while shrouded. Shroud-tastic. And if even one person has the extension upgrade for Shroud, it will propagate to all players, giving even more of an advantage. While shrouded, the zombies have no target, so they will all just run back into the building. With the ammo crate, the team could just keep rebuying ammo, and even animation cancel the reload animation. They used an attachment on their guns called the Drill Charge, which, when fired at a wall, burrows through and causes an explosion on the other side, laying waste to the zombies. Not only that, its damage scales with the rounds, and since the zombie health and rounds already don't scale much past round 50, they made it to 100 in 4 hours. However, there were many times where this room devolved into pure chaos, when teammates went down or they had to balance dealing with manglers, bugs, spiders, or amalgams, tanky and fast boss zombies. The chaos finally caught up with them on 100, and they died. The solo record on Terminus is much lower at 45 by Apospo. Since you obviously can't use the group shroud technique, it's totally different and a lot more training centered. Apos would start in the room adjacent to courtyard to spawn most of the zombies inside, then run out and do cutbacks until they were all hoarded up. However, the max limit of zombies on the map at a time was raised again on Black Ops 6 to 40, so these hordes get fat. Add on to that the fact that you're constantly dodging zombies getting knocked down from mangler shots, things get chaotic fast. Apos would kill mainly with throwing axes, which pierce through multiple zombies and have the highest damage output of any normal weapon, while training inside. You can also just pick them back up after they land on the ground, so you essentially have infinite. Alternatively, he'd use whatever score streaks dropped on the ground, such as RC cars or mangler injections, to deal with the horde. These options also work well on both the manglers and the amalgam. Unfortunately, he ran out of options on 45 and died while trying to get a horde up in the courtyard. Liberty Falls has a first room record of 212 by Devious. This first room is very open, consisting of the whole parking lot, side street, and gas station. Its big advantage is the buyable trap in it, the electric trap which you can lead zombies to walk over. However, Devious also had to deal with manglers taking potshots at him and knocking down the zombies, but he positioned himself behind obstacles like cars and buildings in the room to skillfully block their shots. Liberty also has a vending machine in the first room that, when meleeed once per round, can dispatch almost any loot drop, including perks, which is how Devious managed to get Juggernog and several other perks throughout the game. This game was also played early in Black Ops 6's life cycle, only about a month after the game came out, so a lot of features in the game now had not been added yet, and a lot of things had not been patched, such as the painstakingly long spider rounds, which were pure nightmare fuel seeing an army of spiders marching towards you with only a pellet gun to defend yourself. Devious's game would end after about 23 hours to... wait, what did he even die to? An act of God? Your guess is as good as mine. Citadel des Morts is a special case, and it has the highest numerical first room record of any map ever. 999 by two different players, V-Fish and Jen. These two achieved this within a week of each other in September 2025. Why is this record so much higher than any other? Well, not only is there a Wonder Fizz machine in here that you can buy every perk from, it's also because Citadel is the only map with a crafting table in the first room, so Fish and Jen were able to just buy all the score streaks they wanted. Mostly they went to the basement area and used Mangler injection score streaks, which turns you into a Mangler for 45 seconds and lets you demolish the zombies. Both reached 999 around the 87-hour mark, and since that's the max round on this game, they quit out after with nothing left to do. For comparison, the no support record on Citadel is 154 by Ghost Leader, who ran around the main fountain area using drill charges, throwing axes, and PhD to kill large hordes and respawners. The Tomb's record is 96 by Apospo. This room is a double-tiered dig site with a large walkway around a circular central area. Apos looped around this walkway over and over, staying ahead of the horde and planting what drill charges he could on each loop, then rebuying more from the ammo crate. The crazy thing about this game is, this room actually has a PhD flopper perk machine, which is very helpful for sliding past and falling on top of the zombies to blow them up. But Apos didn't even use this because he was doing a purist challenge for a community bounty of $300, where you basically can't use anything except your starting loadout. And he still rose above all the other boards in this first room, destroying the challenge. He eventually died on 96 when he was forced off the walkway and jumped into a zombie's open arms. The record on Shattered Veil's first room is 86 by Ross88Bic. This room is one of the more complicated layouts with a winding two-tiered courtyard and a bridge, but there's also an electric floor trap similar to Liberty Falls in here. Ross used this to start rounds and then drill charges to finish them off, running a specific circle around the bridge and firing his charges into specific places, so they'd burrow through walls and blast the hordes behind him. Luckily, there was an ammo crate right on his route that he could buy from. The game only lasted 3 hours, as he eventually got cornered off his route by a variety of enemy types and had his own veil shattered. And finally, Reckoning's first room is 62 by Ghost Leader. This is another wide open circular indoor area that basically screams, "Use drill charges in me," so Ghost Leader obliged. The quick revive machine is also in here, giving you that faster regen needed to play closer to the zombies and take more hits. The Uberklaus boss will spawn in here, but Ghost would just use Ether Shroud and melee him to death through both his phases. He eventually died by cutting it too close in one of his loops around the room, trying to jump over a spider. Unfortunately, the spider grabbed him by the ankles and pulled him down to his death, a rough way for anyone to go out. And finally, we come to the last batch of first rooms. Black Ops 7. They really gave up on naming these games, didn't they? Things aren't too different from Black Ops 6 here, with similar round and zombie health progression, movement, and first room size, although drill charges are gone, as they're massively nerfed. I'll also be skipping the Gobblegum categories here for the same reason, but most of them aren't higher anyway. For the launch map, Ashes of the Damned, the first room record is 241 by Ghost Leader. This room is a very large street, as you can see, so Ghost was able to easily hoard up and use throwing axes to collat small groups of zombies, kind of like Terminus, but easier. He was able to use the Toxic Growth Field upgrade on plants to get pack-a-punched weapons, and the Wonder Fizz machine to get all the perks. This game lasted 16 hours, and might be one of the most tragic endings in this entire video. Ghost tabbed out to open another program because he thought the round was changing, and it turned out there was one extra zombie left, which immediately pulled up and killed him. It's worth noting that zombie hits scale up through rounds rounds on this game, and at 200 plus they can 2-hit down you at almost any time, even with Juggernog. Van Dorn Farm's world record is also by Ghost Leader at 144. This room is similar, a wide open space with obstacles dotted throughout, so the strategy is similar too, although Ghost managed to get better weapons this time from the TED trials, timed rotating challenges, those being a rocket launcher and a ray gun Mark II. On the survival maps, TED trials will just spawn in the first room without the need to turn on the power. With the rocket launcher and PhD, Ghost was able to often use the sliding exploit into a wall accentuated with explosions, which is almost like an invincibility technique as long as you have the ammo. Once again, he got all the perks and was not only going for 999 rounds, he was also apparently going for 999 melee macchiatos, because what is this? In fact, this perk duplication bug triggered the end of his game, because when he saved and quit and reloaded the game couldn't handle it and he spawned back in with no perks, and died almost immediately without protection. Astra Malorum has a first room record of only 58 by Swedish player out of 1. This is because it's a regular map and no TED trials will spawn in the first room, nor are there any pods like Ashes of the Damned, so all you have to use is throwing axes and your wits. One would run circles around the lowest area of the spawn room, which is really the only area with maneuverability, and hurl his axes over and over through the horde, killing a few with each pass and dodging respawners with slides and carefully timed stim shots to keep his health up. But this only worked for about 2.5 hours before he lost his self-revive and ate it. Exit 115 goes back to Ghost Leader with a record of 129. Similar to the OG farm or town, this first room